Five Nights at Freddy's is getting its own movie adaptation, and yeah, if you couldn't read the title, Five Nights at Freddy's is getting its own movie adaptation. What do I think about that? Well, I don't really know what to think about that. And apparently, it's not going to follow the game's plot. Now, that can mean one of two things. Well, actually, I don't know what it can mean. It can only mean which. I don't know. It's weird. Why? How could you not follow the game's plot? I mean, there's not much else you could do with it. Now, there's one or two things that could mean. One, they're just going to simplify it, meaning they're not going to have like all the little hints to what the plot really is, like Five Nights 1 did. Like, if you watch Game 3, you know what I'm talking about, where they have little hints as to what happened, where in the movie they're just going to simplify it and just make it about the robots, the animatronics, killing people. Or they really are going to go with a different story and not going to go and change it up and, you know, do stuff like that. I would hope, or there's actually a third thing, it could mean, they said they may not stick to the plot, but that means they still could. I hope they stick to the original plot. So yeah, that's just my opinion. And apparently, I heard rumors that it would be rated R, but you know, you never know. What are my thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's getting its own movie? Well, I don't know. It just kind of, it was sort of built to be a movie because there's very little gameplay anyway. So, you know, there's barely any gameplay, so it's kind of already a movie. But it's just one of the main problems that arises from this is, how are you going to have any jump scares? I know I don't like jump scares. They shouldn't be in movies, but you sort of have to because it's Five Nights at Freddy's. The whole game is pretty much building up to a jump scare. And if you only have one main character, I'm assuming you have one main character, how are you going to do any of the jump scares? Because usually the jump scare is a game over, and if they're jump scaring you, you're dead. So it doesn't really make sense. Unless you have multiple main characters and multiple security guards, which is also another interpretation of we're taking a new direction. That could just be another thing like that they meant by that, and have multiple security guards and then have them get jump scared and stuff. The animatronics, how should they look? They should be real animatronic puppets. Like, they should, I don't really know what to say. They shouldn't move on camera unless, well, they shouldn't move on camera for the most part. Like, Foxy does move a little bit, and sometimes, like, their heads twitch. Those are the only movements that they should make in the entire movie. Because that's some of the creepiest things about the game, is that you don't really see them move unless Foxy is running and doing that stuff. And also, how would you show off Foxy? How would that work? Would just so many of the jump scares you'd have to cut out because that would be the end of the movie. So, and also another obstacle is that you'd have to finally explain why this guy keeps coming back. Like, in a game, it's like, oh, video game logic. It's a video game. Who cares why he keeps coming back? In the movie, you have to explain why he keeps coming back. So, that'll just be difficult. Maybe there's a new security guard every night, but that'd be stupid. Because then you couldn't get attached to anyone. And, you know, you couldn't be like, oh, no, don't die. You know, it'd just be, you wouldn't care if they died or not. So you need to have, that's why having multiple security guards would be a good option, way out of that, because then you'd have multiple main characters, and then, you know, you could do that. And how could you explain why this guy keeps coming back to the restaurant? I really don't know. You know what they could do? I mentioned game theory before, but when they first did their first ever theory on the first game, that would be a great plot for a movie. If you don't read, go check out the theory after this video. But to sum it up, it's basically the character you're playing as. Don't worry, this isn't like a spoiler or anything. He's changed his theory. You know, I'm actually kind of in the middle of watching his newest. I just finished watching his newest Five Nights at Freddy's 3 game theory. But with the first one, he basically said that the character you're playing as is the killer, and yeah, there's a killer, and there's a lot of intricate story details, but is the killer who killed the kids, and the kids possessed the animatronics, and this is the dreams that the killer is having on serving his death sentence. There's a lot more to it than that. Go check out the full video if you didn't understand that. But that would actually be the only thing that I could think of to explain why he keeps coming back. Because, I mean, unless you just like, that is the biggest obstacle you have in this movie, is just explaining one tiny detail that could probably be summed up in one line. And it has to be believable too. Like, you can't just say, oh, he's in a contract. Well, who gives a shit? You're gonna die. And you know, I'd rather be arrested for not following the contract than, you know, dying. So, yeah. It's just like, I don't know how they could do this. I don't know how they could. The hardest thing about this movie, the hardest thing to overcome, is that one little bit of dialogue. Just one line to explain one little tiny detail. That amazes me. So, yeah, I know what the animatronics will look like. Should there only be one protagonist? There should be only one main character. That should be Mike Schmidt, who is, you know, the regular, he's the only security guard. However, there are other people working at the same time. Like, maybe there's a technician somewhere, and, you know, there's all these other people, like a janitor, probably, and, you know, have all these other people, but Mike is the main character. And these other people, like, you know, some of them are his friends, maybe. Like, maybe you could have another security guard who's roaming the halls, and you just know he's gonna die, but, you know, he like, barely survives the first night, and he just somehow keeps surviving, you know, and even though he's in the halls, or something like that. I don't know. But there are many ways that you can have multiple characters and not just have the one. And I think that would actually work. Here's why. Because in the games, when you look at the security cameras, the only real motion is the static. And you can't really have too many still shots in your movie. You really shouldn't have any still shots in your movie if it's just static. And, you know, it does move, like the camera moves, but it would have a lot more motion if you saw, like, the people walking by, like, maybe like the janitor sweeping up, and then, like, Freddy's head just turns to face him. That'd be a good scene in the movie. You know, the janitor's sweeping, and then you see Freddy's head just sort of slowly turn over to look at him. And then, like, the camera, like, statics out, and it says the camera's, you know, been deactivated or whatever. That'd be pretty good scare. And you can take that, Warner Brothers. You can take that. Yeah, Warner Brothers is making the movie, by the way. Scott Cawthon sold the rights to them. So you can use that, Warner Brothers. Go use that. Go use that. I don't care. Who should they cast as Mike Schmidt? They need to cast someone I have not heard of, but is still good. They need to cast. They cannot cast anyone who is well known. They can't cast a single well known person for this. They would just ruin it. You cannot have a single well-known actor in this. Unless they unless they just blow it out of the water and they perfectly nail this character. And you need to come up with a character for Mike Schmidt as well, because the games don't. So you need to have, the reason I say Mike Schmidt, because there's two other people in the second and third games. I don't remember their names, so I'm just gonna say Mike Schmidt. You need to give a character for him, and you need someone to perfectly nail this character if they're well known. If they're well known, they have to nail the character. You can't give it to a well known person and then they half ass it. You can't. And it also needs to be someone, the age range, they cannot be too old. This should be like someone who is just, I would say between the ages of maybe someone in college, maybe so like college age, somewhere from like 19 to early 20s, late teens to early 20s, I'd say somewhere around there. Like 19 through 25, maybe 24. 19 through 24 is like the age range that Mike should be. And yeah, and then the other ones, the janitor should probably be old. You know, and also, what else should they do? Pretty much, the setting, what are they going to do for the setting? Are they going to place it in the first game's restaurant or the second game's restaurant? They're not going to do what Five Nights at Freddy's 3 is doing, because they're not going to do that, because that one is way different from the other games, and they're not going to start off by showing everyone the way different one. Like, if you want people to know what Five Nights at Freddy's is, you're not going to show them the third game right away. You're probably going to show them the first game or the second game. In fact, you'll probably show them the first game. So I'd say place it in the first game, because, and don't use the toy animatronics from the second game, because, no, people will not know. It needs to still be creepy, and, yeah, it just needs to, I don't know. But, yeah, it'll be really hard to nail this. But, yeah. So, and also, who should you get to, how would the phone guy work? Because you can't just listen for 5 minutes to this guy talking. Could it be, like, video? Could we actually see someone playing the phone guy, or would it just be the phone leaving a recording and Mike Schmidt just not having any lines of dialogue for like 2-3 minutes? And also, you have to get around the other game logic thing about the Five Nights games, where even if the animatronic is right next to the door, even if both the animatronics are right next to both of the doors, when it hits 6 a.m., he's just magically out. He can just magically walk right out. That doesn't really make sense. You'd have to explain that. Like, maybe the lights go on, and then... Actually, I have a good explanation. Just the lights go on. You know, he's blinded. He's like, and he looks at the windows, and then they're gone. And then they're back to their normal places. That's the only thing I could think of that would actually kind of add a creepy edge to it. That's the only thing I could think of. So, yeah, and you just not explain it, because that one would also be hard to explain. But, yeah, so, wow, and I guess that's it, for my thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie. So, yeah, and also, one more thing I have to say is, how would you do the extra nights? Because remember, Five Nights at Freddy's actually has 7 nights. It's weird, why would you call it Five Nights at Freddy's? Okay, it has 7 nights. So, how would you do that? Would you actually show 7 nights? But then people in the audience would get confused. People who haven't played the games in the audience would get confused, because it's called Five Nights at Freddy's, and you have 7 nights. If, it's just... You probably couldn't do that, so would you just keep it 5 nights? Would you have the same ending where, he gets fired? Or would you have some sort of ambiguous ending for sequels? Or would you have some, straightforward ending where he gets killed? I would say, for the ending should probably be something along the lines, either he gets fired or ambiguous. Actually, I'd say that to keep it ambiguous, because I'd rather keep it ambiguous. I know that's like, oh, why would you want sequels? Why would you want more sequels? No one likes sequels. Hear me out. They should not make sequels. Oh boy, they should not make sequels. But knowing Hollywood, they will. You can do this right, though. You can do this right. What I'm picturing is he's in a dark hallway. He lights up. He's trying to light this lighter, and then he lights it up, and then he holds it up, and you see Golden Freddy is just like right behind him, and then the movie ends, cut to black, whatever. So I think that would be a good ending to it. I could see Golden Freddy's like this, and then he like turns up when the light hits him. It'd be a pretty good scare. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. If you want to make your own video, talk about it. I'm looking at you, Christian. Christian, if you want to do your own video, talk about it. I want to hear your thoughts. I really want to hear Christian's thoughts on this, like what he thinks about, the movie. So go ahead. I want Christian to make his own video. But for everyone else who doesn't make videos, leave it in the comments what you think they should do. You can go into explicit detail, or you can just say, oh, I think it'll be good, I think it'll be crap. So, thank you guys for watching, and I just want to leave you on this message. A lot can happen in 8 months. Think about this. Imagine, I want to take you back to July of 2014. Who was Scott Cawthon? He had one game that no one cared about, but it did have a couple of characters that were talking bears, and the only thing people noticed was that the bears looked fucking creepy. So, he decides, I'm going to take this thing that did not work and turn it into something that does. And he made Five Nights at Freddy's. 8 months ago, just 8 months ago, Scott Cawthon had one game that no one cared about. And 8 months later, he has 3 games that everyone loves and a movie deal. Anything can happen in 8 months. So, I just wanted to leave you guys with that message. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time.